Thank you for having me. My name is Matthew Rhodes, and I got lost on the way down in Exeter, New Hampshire. He didn't understand my New Jersey accent, but we met a guy from Lowell, and he was our translator, so it worked out good. And apparently, Massachusetts is divided by accent versus zip code. I didn't know that, so I do know that now. So I feel like a little bit of an anthropologist coming down here sometimes. So tonight's presentation is really for the activist. It's for the person that is trying to be an influence in his or her community. And it's important the way that you arrive at information and the way you share information in everything that you do. You have to be able to use the right language, have source information for what you're talking about, and it has to be as unemotional as you can. So in what I do is I always use the people that are doing these things, these bad things that are happening to us. If we weren't imagining that something bad was happening, which a lot of our friends do, they think we're just making all this stuff up. We wouldn't be able to point to information that says, hey, this is what we're doing. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So the greatest enemy of man has always been government. Now this is an anti-government slur. It simply means that government tends to get larger. And so we created a country that was, designed not to get bigger. I'm going to talk about how it got out of control. But Robert Welch with the John Birch Society said that the more extensive that government is, the greater the enemy. So, next. Next slide, please. So our founders' complaints were very simple. If you've read the Declaration of Independence, you can see that list. They tell you exactly what they're upset about. So we're going to focus on 4 of those complaints that they had. And so one of them, they said that he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hitherto swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Sounds familiar? He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts and pretended legislation. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, and for imposing taxes on us without our consent. These are the 4 things that you're going to see focused on tonight. Very important that you understand that we're right there where our founding fathers were. They did not like big government. And so as Thomas Jefferson said, most bad government comes out of too much government. And so this is what we have now is the rise of collectivism. And so for this presentation, we have to look at it's not about what type of government, it's about how much government. And the right amount of government makes us freer. We always have to remember that. It's the right amount of government makes everybody freer. So we need government. So it begins a very long time ago, in like 1903, this guy, his name is Charles Merriam. He starts writing, he writes a lot of books, and he's figuring out a way to redesign our government. And he writes this book called The History of American Political Theories. He's the guy that drafted FDR's New Deal. He's the guy that was part of the Brownlow Committee. He wrote the Reorganization Act of 1939, and he designed the EOP, which is the Executive Office of the Presidency. And they're the ones that, the Executive Office of the Presidency is the ones that controls all these massive administrations that you see out there. You hear about these alphabet administrations. And then he's the author of the Administrative Procedures Act, which are the laws governing those agencies that we have in our country. And you know what they are. They're just these giant extra governmental bodies. So in the freedom movement, we run into a problem initially. When we talk, it's always, if you do like one of those charts where you just want to do a name generator for your group, the Liberty Freedom Alliance, or the Liberty this, or the sovereignty that, or whatever, and that creates a problem for the freedom movement. I just pointed out this shirt that I saw at an event, Legalize Freedom. Well, why is that a problem? That's a problem because we don't ask the government for our freedom. They didn't give us our rights. So this is something that people in the freedom movement initially fall into errors that they begin making. And so you'll hear people say we must restore liberty, freedom, sovereignty, independence, our rights, ad nauseum. We have to reawaken, we have to awaken. Their notions, while well-intended, only create frustration and hopelessness to a very daunting issue. Additionally, it paints a target on your back, and they are abstract. They're not really concrete. We can't touch it, see it, and feel it. It's just an abstract. So they don't help us create a clear path. They just keep muddling a word because we're using it over and over, so we get desensitized to it. And that's what I believe has happened in the freedom movement. So we have to really talk about is what we've lost. And we don't often hear people say that. They say we have lost our checks and balances, which our government was founded on. And with the advent of the New Deal, the creation of the EOP, and the Office of the Presidency, and the APA, we lost what we had as a government was called dual federalism. It was all these checks and balances like a layer cake. And we ended up with what we have now is like a marble cake federalism, where the federal government is shot through at every level with everything that we do. So the big question that people have to ask themselves, and which I think it was Gary Allen said in his book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, is why are we, no matter what we do, we're moving to the left? No matter who becomes president, it doesn't matter. The country goes to the left. So this is why. So America was intentionally transformed by design. So every Democratic president since FDR has created some sort of act or bill of some kind to, I'm sorry, I'm not telling him next. I hope that he's next. He's not psychic, I didn't know that. So anyway, sorry, Alan. Anyway, so, go back to America Transformed. Yep, that one, thank you. So, it's kind of weird, I need eyes in the back of my head. So every president since, FDR, and I forgot to include John F. Kennedy on here, has created some massive spending bill, which created different federal agencies along the way, and began implementing all these planning agencies that you see around you. They're no different from one another, and generally, when Republicans take office, they don't do anything to get rid of any of this massive administrative state. So we're not really dealing with a Republican-Democrat problem, are we? We're really dealing with some people that they believe that we need this big government, we need all this stuff, and they don't realize it's crushing the American people, it's killing us. So in 1987, this book came out. It's called Our Common Future, and it was written by this lady. Her name is Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was the head of the Communist Party, or Socialist Party, I think, in Denmark. I didn't write that note down. And so in this book, is Our Common Future, is where she starts talking about sustainable development. And this book was used as a background in 1992 with the UNCED conference, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. That's where this sort of begins. Sustainable as value comes out from time to time before that, but this is primarily where we see the launching off platform of it next. So Agenda 21, which was established at this Earth Summit, UNCED, and they propose to micromanage every person on Earth. Now I'm sure some of you have heard of this, but just to summarize what this says, I'll just read the last line. It says, this shift will demand that a concern for the environmental consequences of every human action be integrated into individual and collective decision-making at every level. Every level, so there's that word collective again. A lot of you read this stuff, you don't see that word. It's there, it's a buzzword, just like sustainable, and it's everywhere. So now that I've showed it to you, you're going to see it everywhere. They love their collective. And so also the Club of Rome, you'll read about them more now that I've mentioned this to you. They issued a statement too that it is only, I guess he's assuming that I went next. No, he didn't. Could you go next for me there, Alan? A little bit. So the Club of Rome issued a statement that basically said that humanity is the enemy itself. It says you're the enemy. So when people say, oh no, these people can't be killing us, they're not trying to hurt us. Well, they told you that. They told you that they're the enemy. Mankind is the enemy. So that's everybody in this room. Next. So what happens when governments say that people are the enemy? Well, they kill their people. And so, look at the history of the 19th century and even before that. When governments find people inconvenient, they're in the way, they just kill them. And that's a plain fact. So there's no trust in government of any kind. To say that suddenly, our governments became enlightened and now they're going to fix all our problems for us because they love us so much is hardly in line with any kind of portion of human nature that we've seen historically up to this time. And most of the leaders of these regimes have been applauded at the United Nations. Just so you know, I'm going to feature a book later on, you'll see. So this is what governments do. People are expendable, it's democide, it's a lot cheaper than buying tanks and missiles and stuff and starting a war. You can just, oh, I can just kill these guys. So it's much easier, much more convenient. I know that sounds darker, but it's next. And so most people in this room, I would imagine, I could be wrong, but didn't really wake up, so to speak, until 4 years ago when they started having this COVID vaccine come through. Now, it's my opinion, and some reports that I'm reading coming in from Dr. Merrill Nass, Dr. Christina Northrup, and from several committees in Maine, that they are literally wiping out the population. The population of Maine has gone down at least 30%, not 30%, 20%. I have a report at home, but I didn't include it in here. But I believe that the COVID vaccine and a lot of the evidence they're talking about, this is a culling of humanity. This is a quick way to just thin the herd, create some turbo cancers, make people weak, and of course they put the COVID patients inside nursing homes. I know friends that they died in a nursing home right next to a COVID patient. So this wasn't mismanagement. This wasn't they didn't know, they know. So we could all work on that. So together. So in summary, I would like to say to people that when you're talking to people, your neighbors, your friends, you have to say that man is a commodity to the globalists. It's a fact. Man is an inconvenience. Governments will slaughter their own citizens by the millions for any reason their oligarchy decides. They don't need a reason. Whether it's not, there's too many of you, they will kill you. Human life has no value because there's too many humans. That's what they believe. That's what they've been pumping down into our brains for the last 100 years. And massive international organizations want to systematically control all human activity. So now we've established a baseline. We established governments aren't good. There's too much government, and they don't like humans. So what they next? Okay, so good. So sustainability and the Great Reset. They said their initiative's stated aim is to facilitate rebuilding from the global COVID-19 crisis in a way that prioritizes sustainable development. We've heard this before. So it's nothing new for most of you in the room. However, you need to say this. They're telling you the value that they're putting forth for everything they're doing at this point has to do with sustainable development. Everything that they're focusing on, what they're going to do. So next. Okay, we got Klaus Schwab up on the screen. So even this man's words, if you listen to him, he's not talking to you. He's not talking to me. He's not even talking to the mayor next door. He's talking to his group of people. He's telling them how, he's a corporate guy telling a group of people. When you start looking at this guy as a salesman, the head of a corporation, what he's saying makes a lot more sense. He's telling you that we must transform society, and we need a stronger and more effective government, and we must build entirely new foundations for our economic and social systems. So he's telling you himself, I'm going to change your economic and social systems. Well, your economic systems are free market capitalism. Your social systems are, how you go to church, what you believe, what you think, what you find important. He's going to change all of that, and he says that right here. So it makes sense to know what he's talking about in terms of this kind of stuff, because then you're not you're not like beguiled and go, oh, well, I didn't think they were going to do that. Of course they are, because they told you. That's the thing that you have to understand. They're telling you what they're going to do. They're going to change everything about your life. Everything you know is going to be gone. Now, next. So again, more from Klaus Schwab. He talks about the UN document Sustainable Development Goals also calls on government to seize control in production and consumption. It prescribes government-controlled healthcare systems for all. Meeting the Sustainable Development Goals is essential for the future of humanity, explained Schwab at the time. The World Economic Forum is committed to supporting this effort and working with the United Nations to build a more prosperous and equitable future. Klaus Schwab he's a tool. People think, oh, well, he's bigger than the UN, World Economic Forum's work. No, he's not. He's the guy that's orchestrating this all for everybody. Next. So they had to have an idea that was sellable to everybody. And many of you who are around my age, I'm only 25. No, I'm just kidding. But many of you who are around my age, you remember the environmental movement, save the whales, save the snails, recycle your cans, Alcoa can't wait, all this other great stuff. And so they had to come up with this like enviromania to push all this stuff down our throats. And so this sort of started like in tangent. George F. Keenan was the administrator, the ambassador to the UN under John F. Kennedy, and he was a eugenicist as well. He believed that everybody should be compulsory sterilized, and he also says the great enemy is not the Soviet Union, but the rapid deterioration of our planet as a supporting structure for civilized life. So this is where it all starts. They tell you the planet's too small, there's too many of you, we gotta start killing you next. So they created this like fantasy, they told everybody, hey, you can go like, eat granola, whatever, make pickles, live off the land, and everybody will be happy, And then they got a big portion of the population to just check out. There's still groups like that do that now. We're just gonna check out and wait for things to pass, this religious neutralism, you got these sovereign people running around, they're like, no, this is how we win. We just gotta go, build our communities. They won't touch us, but that's a lie. There's no portion of the earth that the globalists don't believe is theirs, okay? That's the thing you have to remember. You cannot check out of this. You can't just go, no, they'll leave me alone. We're just gonna, me and my friends are gonna eat alfalfa or whatever. So the earth is theirs. They are its masters. You have to remember that. So, next, please. If I'm going too fast, I can slow down. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. So, now, this is the structure of the United Nations system. It's a massive organization. It's got 6 different councils. The one primarily we'll be talking about tonight is the Economic and Social Council, and they. You can see in the beginning they are the ones that govern sustainable development. They also control the World Health Organization. They control the IMF, UNESCO, all these different various banks. You'll see how that's important later on. So we know about the international, monetary fund. If you lend money to your country and you got to accept all the things they tell you, like abortion and all this other stuff, and transgender, and if you don't, if you try to go against them, they'll just bankrupt your economy, and you'll start eating dogs or whatever they did down in Venezuela. So what I try to tell people is that to get all this in the proper perspective, the Sustainable Development Goals are the New World Religion, just as much as this is a church with Christian values, and this is what we're taught as we're growing up. The 10 Commandments, the Beatitudes, our values for human life. We were taught growing up that we're custodians of this planet. But the UN is not satisfied with just, running everything. In order to make this work, they have to get you to believe what they believe. They have to get you to accept their values. And they have 17 goals, just like we have 10 commandments, they have 17 goals. You start looking at what the UN is doing and all these SDGs as a religion, that's what they are. And you see your neighbors, your friends, so when you're talking to people, understand they're next. They're under the influence of these 17 goals. It's hard to say, oh, this is bad. Oh, who doesn't want no poverty? Who doesn't want people to not starve? Well, so this is, again, I'm just going to sidetrack here and say that any organization worth its weight in salt believes that we can't do this without more responsibility. And so the John Birch Society believes that. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. You can't do this without responsible Christians and all that. So, did the globalists take away our churches? Slowly, I'm sure they did. We accepted their 501c3 statuses. We told them that we wouldn't speak out against the government. Our philosophy became weak as Christians, and they were like, oh, this is great. So they just watered us down, and now they have this, and this is the stuff that people follow now. And so you're dealing with a religion. And remember, communists always have said that their greatest enemy is religion. So if you sit around and you listen to people, and what's great about being the coordinator in like 5 states is that You see this stuff being generated by AI probably in social media, where people talk about religion is bad, I'm spiritual, I'm not religion, and whatever, and they'll say things like, religion is complaining that somebody's feet are dirty, but spiritual is washing their feet, or some nonsense like that. And they're always putting down religion. Well, I always tell them, you know what, the communists are very proud of you, because we need our churches, we need our religion, we need Christians to get along better with each other. Let's stop arguing about our specific altars, and let's get this done. That's the essence of the John Birch Society, that we come together. Not that our altars are important, but we have to rebuild our churches together or separately, however the case may be. So, sorry about that, I went on a little bit of a tangent, but this is important to show you. To say that, to speak on this next idea, is that, with the United Nations, you could report your actions. It's like going to confession, right? You can register your good deed and tell them what you did, and then they could talk about how awesome you are, and you and your town being sustainable. So it's a religion. You can go there, you can look on their website. Now, they had to have an agent of change. And so we're going to talk about just one non-governmental organization here. That's ICLEI. They're now called Local Governments for Sustainability, but they were originally the International Council for Local Initiatives, Local Environmental Initiatives. And they are an international organization that promotes sustainable development. ICLEI provides technical consulting to local governments to identify and meet sustainable objectives. ICLEI is considered a bridging organization, playing important roles in knowledge sharing and intermediation process between local initiatives and regulatory actors. I want you to know that if you spend any time on your website for your town, or any of these NGOs' websites, you're going to see local initiatives and regulatory actors. This is another buzzword that they use. Very important to know that. Got to get used to the language that these people use. And they're salesmen, they're lobbyists, they're influencers. And at every level, every word that they use is something different than what you think it means. So here's what you have in Massachusetts. You have, what is it? Can't count that high. I have to take my shoes off. Anyway, 1, 2, 6 towns. Part of ICLEI. Now, that's 936,000 people, 232. Suppose just like 5 of those people knew, of all those people knew 5 people. That's almost like the entire population of Massachusetts. So in other words, that town has accepted as being part of this great organization that's part of the UN. You'll see. This is their network. It's a global network. They go into towns. They're like very much like how a virus is. It goes into your body. It uses your material to produce more of itself. And then it takes over the host. It doesn't try to kill you. It just wants to take you over. So that's what they're trying to do. This is more of a local map. When I did this presentation 3 years ago in Maine, I said they have like 80 towns, and so let's do something. And they just looked at me, well, he's from the John Birch Society, he's crazy. And they did nothing, and now they have 16 cities that are part of ICLEI. So if you don't do anything, they're going to just keep taking over city after city after city. They're not going to stop. So, next. I'm not used to saying next all the time. Anyway, I don't boss poor Alan around anymore. So anyway, so where does NGOs come from? Where they come from the United Nations Charter. They were given sanctity or sanctioned by the United Nations. NGOs existed before, but in Article 71 forms the basis for granting non-governmental organization consultative status with the UN. And now, if you are an NGO and you want to function within a town, you have to get permission from the UN. That's how it works. Next. Double check and see how I'm doing. Yeah, let's just go. All right, so we're on this one. So, as I talked about before, like with the virus, non-governmental organizations, according to the UN Department of Global Communication, NGO is a not-for-profit voluntary citizens group that is organized on a local, national, or international level to address issues in support of the public good. Next. So, the United Nations is the one world government. And their mechanism of infiltration is NGOs. They establish a baseline of what we're going to believe, what we're going to do, and how we're going to act, and they come into your town and they start working their little magic here. So United Nations Committee on Non-Governmental Organizations is responsible for accrediting non-governmental organizations with consultative status that the United Nations established in 1946. It reports directly to the Economic and Social Council, which is, ECOSOC. And just to give you an example, like, well, why are we losing? Well, in 2011, UN pumped $2 trillion worth of money on green technologies. That's what you're fighting. You're fighting in your town. You feel helpless. You feel like, well, what am I going to do? It's because you're fighting a massive international organization that's manipulating your town with money. Next. So ICLEI, if you look on their website, they'll tell you, they're gap bridgers. So I want you to understand that when they talk about local initiatives, they're talking about planning boards, they're talking about planning commissions, they're talking about charter committees of any kind whatsoever. Regulatory actors, when you see that word, they are selectmen, state legislators, the Council of Governors, Secretary of State, Congressmen, it doesn't matter, Bureau of Secretaries, Regulation, Rotary Clubs. So that's where they're bridging the gap. They have lobbyists, they have people that are influencers, they come into your town, they encourage stuff, they teach you people how to think, they'll say, well, you got to take the money because somebody else is going to spend it. You'll hear that all across New England. So, next. Now, Klaus Schwab talks about a company. What he really was talking about was NGOs. He was saying that we need to do this in a way that's more attractive to people. And so I just wanted to, I threw this slide in here to let you know that these people are really no different than mobsters. If anybody grew up in New Jersey, in some of these neighborhoods, they come into your town, and you're not going to do business without, their permission. So just to kind of like put them in the proper perspective, these are common criminals, all right? So, now, in the last 3 years, you've heard everybody in the freedom movement called a fascist, right? You're a fascist. But really, they're the fascist, okay? And it's like with Mussolini's brown shirts, that when a government can reward some private company for compliance and punish others for lack of compliance, we know that we are in a fascist state. That's exactly where we're at. That's why we're losing, because they're rewarding people for good behavior, and they're giving them benefits for good behavior. They're telling them if you do this, you will be rewarded. You will be a reward of the state. Your family will, you'll have a job. I know coordinators in the Midwest that have all lost their jobs because they are fighting all this green stuff. Excuse me. So, Sustainable Development Goals are the new religious substructure of our government and are replacing the Bible and the Constitution. Those who participate and benefit from this are called stakeholders. So, these are just sort of like a summary slide, but stakeholders can be a town, city, county, business, and or a person, just so you know when you see that word, all right? Any person or entity accepting and using federal funds for the purpose of implementing SDGs, in my opinion, is a stakeholder and a fascist. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're taking the money, you're taking the bribe, and you're agreeing to this global, regime. So, next. This is something that we've always taught, is that they redesign America through bribery. That's what stakeholder involvement is. They take your money and they turn you into something that they want you to be. It's always been that way with communists. They'll take your money, they'll keep giving it back to you, and through it, they'll make you a slave. So, always remember that when you're talking to your selectman, he's like, you gotta take the money. So, the United States, as a member of the United Nations, has accepted, next, please, or the one that says summary part 2. The United States, this is fun for me, it's the first time with a big giant screen like this, well, one at a time anyway. So the United States, as a member of the United Nations, has accepted the abolition of our way of life. This isn't an organization that went bad. They were always bad. They were always here to take over our country, all right? Non-governmental organizations were created as a means of implementing global change. Okay, so there's your summary. You're all with me? Am I like, it's getting really dark in here, isn't it, so far? It'll get better. So next, please. So this is the chief complaint of Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, that collectivism, he says, for it is perfectly evident, right, in the case of the very civilization that we know most about, that both the Greek and the Roman civilization did perish of the cancer of collectivism. So it's important to understand that, you know, the people around you, they're not like these, you know, villains with the handlebar mustaches, you know, in rooms with labs, you know, sometimes they don't really know what they're doing. However, collectivism is a real and actual thing that happens, and it crushes many civilizations. And in fact, many of the people around you in your towns with these millions of committees that they have, they love their committees, they think that they're doing, oh, this is great, look at us, how organized we are. It's even the same way in the freedom movement. Every time you turn around, somebody's like forming a new, you know, freedom group. And, but they, this desire to hyper-organize all the time, to make your government and your organization stuff bigger and bigger and bigger is a cancer. And that's what Robert Welch calls it in the Blue Book. We have those back there for sale. I highly recommend that you read it for foundational thinking, okay? So, next. So let's take a real quick at Newburyport. And I'm not gonna go too far into this. I just want, the first thing that struck me was that this is not really a really poor town. There's not, you know, from what I was told, there aren't like ghettos and, you know, drug dealers and drive-bys going on too much. So I said to myself, this is, I would say, a pretty prosperous town. And this is a pattern that you're seeing, and I point this out, that it's not just like a party thing at all anymore. It's everybody's taking this money, and they're spending this grant money, which isn't theirs. It's printed by the Federal Reserve. It comes into the towns, and see, there's laws protecting the states from being forced to follow unconstitutional federal mandates, so they couldn't do that. This is like an end run around your sovereignty. So, you know, when you go into a town like Newburyport, you're like, good Lord, like, why is a town like this so broke? Like, what do you need this money for? They don't care. They're gonna say, oh, well, we need we're gonna build you know, a new playground or something like that, whatever it is. But the simple truth of all this, when you see this kind of money being spent, everybody in the country gets taxed on this. It makes everybody equally poor. That's the value of this. Forget about the sustainable development part about that. You're accepting this in your town. But the fact is that you're agreeing as a selectman to make everybody in the country as equally poor, to accept the burden of the thing that you want. So, next. So the town of Newburyport, Massachusetts has access to community development block grant funds, which are federally provided through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. I don't think HUD was designed for towns like Newburyport, but I could be wrong. It was designed for you know, communities. We'll go into that later, a little bit later on. Federal funding, CBG funds, are allocated by HUD to cities and towns to support community development projects that benefit low and moderate income houses. Well, your low income in Newburyport, where I'm from, is considered like, you know, higher level. So I guess it's all relative. You know, you can make the case that the people that are only making $80,000 are really suffering a year. But anyway, so that's how it is with money. They just rationalize it. So, you know, this is just a slide to show you that your town is now fully participating in taking everybody in America's money. This is what I'm trying to do with everybody when I do this presentation, is that you have to declare your value. You have to declare what's important to you. It can't be just about parties, oh, is this constitutional, or anything like that. Not to say the Constitution is not important, but there has to be a value. You have to have a main, you know, foundational thinking about what matters and what doesn't matter. And so in this case here, we see that the residents of Newburyport are drunk on other people's money. Newburyport is a member of ICLEI, and so this is a quote, in case anybody asked you, why do you want to get out of ICLEI? Yeah, okay, so I guess he's reading my mind now. It's really awesome. We're best friends. I can't wait. Anyway, so this is a quote from Harvey Rubin, Vice Chairman of ICLEI. Individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. Okay, there's that word again, collective. You don't mean anything to them. This is about mob rule. ICLEI members are at the heart of our network. This is from the ICLEI website. They steer the direction of our network, shape our strategy, and play a central role in our governance structure. All our members are fully committed to sustainable urban development. And that's from, from their website. Next. Newburyport is also part of the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. And just in summary, the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission is a regional planning agency created in 1959. I'm sure some of you know that already. I don't see a lot of heads nodding, or people are just falling asleep. But anyway, so it's with the goal of consistently planning development and promoting sustainable development. There you go again. There's the buzzword. So they are committed to being in line with the goals and charters of the United Nations. And just in general, they, these guys don't care about your towns and your borders. And originally, planning commissions, when they came out, and New England's the biggest starting point for most of these, is that they were a good idea, but they became unregulated, and they became a governmental body on their own. The idea of planning, hey, two cities get together, what do you want to do with this creek or this road? You can't have like different types of roads going through town. You can't have like cobblestone and then brick. Planning is good. It's that these guys are not content with planning. They're content with running every aspect of your life. So, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission was given seed money. The seed money came from the Federal Housing Act of 1954. It was introduced by, at the time, Senator John F. Kennedy, Democrat, and Representative Joseph M. McDade, Republican. So this is my warning to you when you hear somebody say, oh, this was partisan or bipartisan, run, okay? That means we both agreed to do really bad things to you. We want you to think that we care about you. It was created to strengthen the National Housing Act of 1934 under FDR, which was created back then. And the cost was $125 million, which is about $1.2 billion today. So to see, why are we losing? Because they are funded to the hilt. And so when we're talking at a local level, and we're in here, we're scared. And we're scared. People in the freedom movement are scared because they know that their country is dying. So we have to say to ourselves, well, who are we up against? So when we want to watch The Price is Right or like Family Feud. I don't even know what shows are on TV anymore, but it tells you how old I am. But if you're watching these shows and you're not at a meeting doing something about your town, understand that these people have a plan. They have a lot of money. They're well funded, and there's no portion of this where you can go back to a normal life. Your normal life at this point in time is over. Okay, it should be over. It should have been over a long time ago. But we didn't, as John Adams said, that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. There's no portion of our government that gave people the permission to sit around while these people took over our country. So just understand that the United Nations creates values. Next, please. And so this is from the UN Habitat Conference of 1976. He said, land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, therefore it contributes to social injustice. Sound familiar? Karl Marx, right? And then if you look at this next quote, we will map the whole system, determine development of the whole country, and regulate it all. This is Thomas Lovejoy from the Science Advisors to the Department of the Interior. By the way, the Department of Interior also includes the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And next, and we know what they did to the Indians. See? So imagine that. You have the guy from the Department of the Interior telling you that we're going to map and control every portion. And you don't have a lloydal deeds anymore in America. You have a warranty deed. You don't own your property. You're sharing your property with the city, with the state. So next. And really, in my opinion, what they're building are vivarium for humans. Now, it might be a little bit extreme, but you should watch the movie Vivarium. It's disturbing, but it's really good. It's not graphic or anything in a bad way. So, and this is the proof. Next, this is the this is from the HUD website, and this is what they think your future should be, like little habit trails, you know, or little human vivariums where all your sustenance is, you know, little pellets, you know, like you give to your gerbil and stuff or whatever, you know, they feed in through like a little tube, and it's like, oh, well, he went to the bathroom too many times this week, I guess we're gonna have to kill him. I don't know what they'll do, but this is their value of the future. You're just an animal to be put in a cage. This has always been the way. So, next. So I just want to go into the origins of ESGs. This is important for you to know that this is a real value that was created by the UN. It was at the Who Cares Wins conference. How do you like that for Orwellian speak? If you, oh, you care, so you win. You're going to get something good out of this because you care, right? You're a good person. You can feel good about yourself, kiss yourself, you know, whatever, pat yourself on the head, whatever. And then, but they in 2005 first brought together institutional investors as asset managers, buy-side and sell-side research analysts, global consultants, government bodies, and regulators, legislators, lawmakers, to examine the role of environmental social governance, value drivers in asset management and financial research. There was a remarkable degree of agreement among participants that ESG factors play an important role in the context of long-term investment. So they had to make this, they had to sell this to people, to, you know, the guys with money, I don't know, people that own companies, whoever, it doesn't matter, you know, Walmart, BlackRock, people that come into your town, open up a gym. And so it stands for, you know, environmental social governance. Next, I don't know where we're on, but it creates a criterion for how people function and exist. Very important for you to know this. Where are you finding all this? Well, they told me. It was at the Who Cares Wins conference. They created these ESGs. Next. Now, this is something called the Principles for Responsible Investment. You could actually look this up on the internet. In fact, if anybody wants this information, give your email to my wife Linda in the back. She's the lovely, beautiful lady that came in late. So you understand that this blueprint for responsible investment, that's what drives your SDGs for your towns. And it tells people, you know, where they can invest. And if you want to be part of this big club, you have to sign up, and you have to prove to them that you're going to share this value with them. So this is called the Principles of Responsible Investment, and these are the origins of ESGs and SDGs, okay? So there you go. So we're not making this up, guys, right? It's a big club they're creating, and everybody else that doesn't agree with the UN, you're not in it. So you can forget about opening up that shop in your town, because eventually, if they have their way, just like they're doing with heritage areas in Maine, you're going to have to prove your worth. You're going to have to prove that you are, before you even open up a shop, you're going to have to show them how many employees you have. Now, I put this one up here. I know there's a lot of words on it, but it's in case somebody wants to take a snapshot. It's the relationship between ESGs and SDGs, so feel free to take a snapshot of that, or if you want, I'll send you it. But it's really important that you understand the difference of these, so as you move forth out of here, again, I'm talking to you not just to give you information, I'm teaching you to be activists, okay? So I'll just wait a couple seconds. All right, so we're all set? All right, next. Again, it's a big club and you're not in it. Let me check my time.
Your battery's dying.
What's that?
Your battery's dying on your...
Oh, my battery's dying?
Let me give you, yeah, let's do this.
Okay.
There you go. You can just shut that off, yeah. I'll get that out.
So, check the time here. All right, we're doing pretty good for time. So, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm like one of them lounge singers from the 70s, you know, that really get up and personal on the microphone. I'll go ahead and hold this, how's that? Okay, here we are, we're back. I'm gonna watch my time. It's almost getting as cluttered as my desk at home. So it's what happened? I lost my way.
Big club and you're not in it.
All right, so it's a big club and you're not in it? Are we on that slide? Great. And this is from Gavin Power, Senior Officer of the UN Global Compact, Officer of the Secretary General. A powerful and historic convergence is clearly underway between the objectives and concerns of the United Nations and those of the private sector, including, crucially, the financial markets. Peace, security, and development go hand in hand with prosperity and growing markets. And it just goes on and on. But basically, this is the Global Compact. This is a huge organization, and they're bringing everybody together in agreement to this way of life that they're creating for the whole world. Next. So I just wanted to show you this is how they did it. You had the New Deal, Brownlow Committee. That was 1937, the Reorganization Act. So you can take a picture of the slide. And the Council of Foreign Relations, which was created in 1921, they tried one time to create the League of Nations, but then they failed, and so they created the United Nations. The United Nations was created by the Council on Foreign Relations. And by the way, the John Birch Society is the only organization in America that is trying to push a bill through to make it illegal for any member or former member that's held public office to be a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So, now, this is the part where I lose people, because now you're getting carried away. Okay, we were following you, but now you're being ridiculous. Okay, so let's just talk about the Soviet connection. The American communists worked energetically and tirelessly to lay the foundation for the United Nations, which we were sure would come into existence. And then they said the ultimate object of the parties of the Socialist International is nothing less than a world government as a first step that seeks to strengthen the United Nations. Okay. That was the Declaration of the Socialist International in 1962. Next. So this is a big, long quote from a guy who was the head of the Communist Party in America. He was a big influencer. His name is Joseph Kornfetter. And he says, I need not be a member of the United Nations Secretariat to know that the UN blueprint is a communist one. I was at the Moscow headquarters of the World Communist Party for nearly 3 years. I was acquainted with most of the top leaders. I went to their colleges. I learned their pattern of operations. And if I see that pattern in effect anywhere, I can recognize it. Okay, so, next. So these are people that held positions in the UNDP, which is the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs with the United Nations. These are all Russian, Soviet nationals. Goes all the way back to 1946. This has been a Soviet operation right from the beginning to change our country. Now, next. Now, I've gone through all that. I kind of feel like I get to this point and all right, people are like, I'm beat up. I can't take this anymore, all right? And now we're going to talk about a little bit about how we can change things around. But it has to start with you. Now, let's go through some errors that people make in thinking. You hear it all the time, and if you listen to Tucker Carlson, you hear it like every 5 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that out loud with my out loud voice? Okay, I didn't mean to do that. So the purpose of government is for it to do things for people. Common mistake, the purpose of elections is to get my winner to carry out my will. As long as people want it, then it's okay. These are things that go through people's head. And by the way, it's stuff that I hear all the time in the freedom movement. It's very common. As long as the people want it, then it's okay. The purpose of having a party is to provide checks and balances. And people say we are a democracy, and government institutions are there to provide for others. We can't let people starve, right? Rights come from the government. The general welfare law of the Constitution says government can do anything it wants, it wishes, as long as it's for the general welfare, right? How do you like that? Everything Congress declares is the supreme law of the land, and that includes treaty law. These are common errors that Americans make all the time, and if you listen to people talk, next. Well, I want to go on to say why I don't generally listen to conservative talk shows, because there was a lady talking one day, and she said the great beauty about our country is the checks and balances we have under the two-party system. And I thought, this is why we're losing. Because clearly this lady has never read George Washington. If you read George Washington's farewell address, you would know there's no such thing as parties. We are being controlled by our parties. That was the whole purpose of them, okay? So, if you're listening to like these guys for hours and hours driving in your car and not going and talking to your townsmen and the people around you, that's probably why we're losing, because freedom people love to be on Telegram coming, you know, with thousands of conspiracy theories, you know, and I think at one point during the COVID lockdowns, people were talking about aliens coming through the wormhole. That was fun. That was a great one, you know, through the CERN collider or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, but it was on Telegram, so it had to be true. Anyway, so let's talk about accountability. This conversation that you are going to walk out of here having today starts with you. You have to examine your beliefs, okay? We don't know how to think like Americans anymore. We stopped thinking like Americans a long time ago. So ignorance of our form of government is primarily the fault of the voter. Okay, this is going to be harsh, so let me just go through this. Asking our elected officials for things the Constitution does not allow is a citizen's violation of the Constitution. You see that all the time. You know, I like to go up to my state legislator and say, hey, if I vote for you, will you build me like a superhighway between my house and the donut shop and take out all the speed bumps? And he's like, okay, all right, but as long as I get your vote. So, because when he first started running, he was saying things like, well, I like to go to people and talk about what they want and what they're going to do and, you know, what this person's needs are. And I said, hey, listen, you're not Santa Claus, okay? Our elected officials are not Santa Claus, so we need to fix that. I heard somebody sent me, from one of you guys in this group, sent me some talk show guy, and he said, we have to tell them that they have to follow the will of the people. And I said, oh man, it's really bad down in Massachusetts. We just stopped listening to talk shows in Massachusetts. No, I'm sorry I said that, but I'm a little blunt sometimes. Anyway, it was just kind of scary, so we're here to fix that, okay? We're going to fix all this bad thinking. Believe me, our elected officials are heroes to champion our causes has been the primary thought belief that allowed Americans to be manipulated into agreeing to their own slavery, okay? Not assessing our candidates for fundamental understanding of the Constitution and neglect of our duties as Americans. What do we do before elections? We got this guy on our shoulders. He hasn't even thrown his touchdown pass yet. He hasn't done anything, but he's our hero, right? We have a Barabbas complex. And for you Christians in the audience, we know who Barabbas was, right? He was the guy that they freed instead of killing Christ. See, because he was going to liberate the Jews from the Romans. So we have a Barabbas problem. We are worshiping the wrong God. We have one God, Jesus Christ. So making statements such as no one is perfect while voting for somebody that you know is completely immoral is inexcusable. There are people running right now that are completely pro-life, completely Christian, and nobody knows about them. Okay? So not holding a candidate to the highest expectation is only idol worship. Okay? This is where we have to examine this. This is what I do as a field coordinator. We show a class called The Constitution as the Solution, and what it does, it says the conversation has to start with you. Okay? That's what it has to, you have to start the conversation, examine your beliefs, because it's something that we're all doing that's not great. And I hope that I'm not running over time. Somebody throw a shoe or something, I'll be like George Bush. Anyway, so we are not a democracy. Thomas Jefferson lamented that a democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49. How do they vote in your town when you have a budget? 51. It's the majority rule, right? That's how it is in Maine. Who's going to say no to money? So when they pass these budgets, everybody's just doing what they want. James Madison argued that democracies have never been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. John Adams has concluded that democracy, they never last long, it soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There was never a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. But what are people saying when they say the word democracy? What they're really saying is fairness. But really, they're not saying anything. They're saying mob rule. They manipulate you with the word democracy. We are not democracy. Fairness comes from every person in America having to follow the same edict of law. That's where fairness comes from. Nothing comes fair from democracy, because if the mob decides they don't like the way you work in your house, or whatever you're doing with, they can take it. They do that. They just spend money and they go, well, your property taxes are going up. Well, I can't afford to live here anymore. That's too bad. Just too bad. We're going to take your house. We're going to take whatever you want. I was in a town meeting. This is what got me, upset about this. In my town, they were raising property taxes while having a bake sale for the poor out in the hallway at the town hall. And I thought, this is great. I said, how about you just let these people keep their houses? Let them keep their houses, for crying out loud. What are we doing? So, but we'll have a bake sale. That'll take care of them. We'll put them out on the streets, put them on Social Security, right? And we'll have bake sales for the poor all the time. That'll do it. So, now, I want you to understand something. This is really key. Walk out of here tonight. Understand that the globalists tell you what they're doing. Everything that I've showed you, they told you what they're doing. You're without excuse. I don't know what's happening. It's such a mystery. Every time you turn around, somebody's excited about something the WHO did. And come on. Really? They're doing this all the time. There's nothing new. Every plan they have. So in Massachusetts, you had, under Obama, you had the Global Warming Solutions Act. It was strengthened under the Massachusetts Clean Energy and Climate Plan for 2050. There you go, MAFA. There it is. What they're going to do is right there. You can go read it. We can go read it together, and I can show you. They're going to tell you what they're going to do to your state, step by step. They also have a decarbonization roadmap. So there's no mystery here. What you're going to do when you walk out of this room should be determined by what they are telling you they're going to do. Also, if you want to take a look at where the state grants are, the laws governing state grant money, it's under the 193rd General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's quite extensive. Of course, I didn't read it and memorize the whole thing for you guys tonight. I hope you're not mad at me for that. But that's where you're going to go, because when I got asked to do this, I called Newburyport and I said, hey, could I get a copy of your town budget? And they were like, oh yeah, sure, this is great. And I looked at them and I said, I called them. I said, hey, do you have, what happened to all the grant money? Like, I know you got grant money, so can you show me who got it, who spent it, what they did with it? They are accountable to where that money is spent. So there is an accountability. They do have rules. You have to find out what the rules they are. They have. And here's the thing. When you go into a town meeting, you don't go in there and go, you're not obeying the Constitution. Just find out what they think their authority comes from. Let them tell you. Let them talk to you. Well, where do you have permission for this? Because I don't see it anywhere. Oh, okay, it's over here, here, and here. All right, then now you have something to work with, but let them establish the baseline. Because if you don't have anything, when you're walking into a town meeting, you're going to sound like a nut. You're going to go in there and yell like, you got to obey the Constitution. You're going to look like So this is why tonight, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the Constitution. Because states have a lot of rights, a lot of ability, a lot of free flow. We forget that. So the problem is not constitutionality. It's is it a good idea? Is it going to bankrupt us? Is it going to make our government too big? And clearly, Massachusetts is, you guys are ridiculous. You got people become a legislator for 8 years and then you get $90,000 a year for the rest of their lives, something like that. It's really crazy. And this stuff is just going unchecked over and over again. So while we're checking them, we could be talking about what they're doing to the citizens of Massachusetts financially. They have, the people around you have to find their pain centers. That's really important. And if you don't know what that is, and what I find universally, money. Money speaks volumes. So, anyway. So I would say I presented this the last time. This is my solution for freedom. His first line of defense is next. I don't know if my wife's back there. My guide, my guardian. So first line of defense is for towns to remove all non-elected officials. and to cancel any memberships the towns have with NGOs or other pseudo-governmental bodies. You're never going to have freedom. Now, you're going to say, no, this is not going to happen. Well, guess what? They're not going to stop doing what they're doing because they feel that they have the authority to do it. You want to restore checks and balances. No town and elected official should outsource any responsibilities to any non-elected body or person or use them as advisors. So what I say to my town people, what we do in like New Hampshire, we're doing in other parts of New England and Maine, is we say, who told you to do that? I didn't tell you to do that. Who gave you permission to do that? Where does it say that you can do that? Please tell me under what authority you had the right to contact some planning commission and do something. These are the habits you got to get into as the people of Massachusetts. I almost sound like I'm doing Mutual of Omaha as well, the people of Massachusetts. Anyway, so the town should never accept any money in any form coming from federal agencies, as they are all federal agencies, all 500 are all compliant with the goals of sustainable development. That's a fact. Borrowing money against the credit of the town is not, if not illegal, should be, and is a violation of the Fifth Amendment, because if you could deprive somebody of property without jury, you violated the Constitution, and they do it all the time. Remove your town managers. They came in as part of the progressive movement. If you remember Charles Merriam, that was his idea and a couple other guys, and that was something where they said, hey, we can make things more efficient. It's always been in the name of efficiency. And return our Republican form of government at the town level, which is required by the Constitution. We are a republic. So all budget decisions are to be conducted at the general town hall, and it can only be implemented by a supermajority vote. That's what we're pushing through in Maine. All the small towns, we're saying, hey, look, we're not going to vote for anything unless we all agree on it. That's the only way you're going to stop these people, because there's people around you in your town. They think their job is to run your life. Those people are never going to go away. They're busybodies. We had somebody move in from Massachusetts into my town, and she had somebody plow her road into the woods, and then she suddenly wanted everybody in our town to build her, like pave her road for her. And we're like, you got to be kidding. You're in the wrong part of the world. So anyway, but what's happening now is these smaller towns that are on the coast of Maine, what they're doing, they're saying, hey, oh yeah, it was so-and-so, my buddy Jimmy, he wants a driveway. Guess what? We got grant money. Let's go do it. Let's take money from all the taxpayers across America. So this is just an example. Next, Fighting for America. This is examples of all across the country that we've been winning. Rochester, New Hampshire, Somerset County, New Jersey. Personally worked close with a coordinator out of Southern Jersey. They have kicked ICLEI out of their towns, passing bills. Arizona would prevent the state, county, and city governments of Arizona from adopting any tenet of the UN Declaration and the Statement of Principles for Sustainable Development. There's a way to win. You have to kick the UN out of your town. Next. In Maine, that bill never got passed. Monmouth County, that one did. They voted to end their membership in ICLEI. Fairbanks, Alaska. Maryville, Ohio. Carroll County, Maryland. These are different acts. We work together. John Birch Society works across the country. When we see a state successfully doing something, we say, hey, let's try this all across the world. So right now we have an initiative to start getting some of these nullification bills. It's called nullification. We'll talk about that in another class. Across America to across New England. And so, because when you have more states doing the same thing, this can work together. So these are some examples, and some of them very successful. Alabama has kicked out the United Nations. West Virginia has kicked out BlackRock. It's happening, just not happening in New England. So this is one of Tennessee bans Agenda 2030. And so I'm going to strongly recommend that you buy these 2 books. This is Sustainable by Tom DeWeese. This is a workbook. If you read that workbook, 450 cities have kicked out ICLEI out of their towns. You can do this. It can be done. You cannot be afraid. So he will tell you, we're working on a training program together. Next. If you doubt anything that I've said tonight, I highly recommend these two books. Now, I can get you the PDF for this, or you can buy them from JBS, or you can get them on Amazon. We don't carry the hard copies of them anymore. We just went through these in our book club with the Robert Welch Book Club on Sunday nights, and we have 3 more chapters, honey, in Global Tyranny Step by Step. So you can go to robertwelchbookclub.com and you can see what we're on and go in there. But I would highly recommend that you understand that this is much deeper than people being mean to us and telling us to get electric cars. I would also recommend that you next begin understanding that we are also working across the country to make states states again. The states created the federal government. They didn't create us. Okay, so we have to know how to do that. This book, What Degree of Madness, is on the back table. The New American is back there. The book is $15. The New American, $1. If you can't afford it, let me know. We'll work something out. Maybe you can let me borrow your electric car or something like that. I don't know, whatever. So I don't like to be cheap with people. I'd rather you get the literature in your hands and start giving yourself some good foundational thinking. Because, if you're listening to the conservative talk show, you're not getting the right information at all. So next. So these are some of our writers. We've been around for a long time. We told everybody to get out of the UN 60 years ago. We told you to get your kids out of public schools 60 years ago. They're going to turn your kids into abominations. There's nothing that our organization hasn't been right about. Okay? So if you want, Alex Newman has a podcast, and this is William Jasper. Ludwig von Mises used to be an editor for the John Birch Society, the American Opinion magazine. And you can join today if you'd like. Linda in the back has some, these are some, we call these tools. Every month we go around and we hand this stuff out. We have a Power 500 program. If you're interested in learning about that, I can say. Anybody have questions? I hope not. Linda, can you come up here?